Greetings, Rothlings, and welcome to SpaceWeek Live for Sunday, March 21st, 2021. Yes, I'm still in moving mode. We close on the new house in about a week and a half, and so my life is a series of boxes and back pain. So this is, as always, a live Q&A. If you have any questions, please ask them in the chat. Make sure to tag my name, rawspace, or @rawspace, so that we're sure to see them. If you don't tag my name, chances are we won't see them, and I won't be able to answer your questions at the end of the show. So let me pull my notes over here. There we go. All right. Now, last week. Sorry. I had to move some stuff around. Okay. Last week, on Thursday, we had the much anticipated full 8-minute SLS core stage hot fire test. This was a, the Space Launch System is the rocket that has been in development for many years by NASA and industry partners, Boeing, etc. And this is the core stage, that is the first stage of the rocket minus the solid rocket boosters that will carry the Artemis missions up to and around the moon, starting hopefully later this year with Artemis 1. Now this core stage is the actual vehicle that will carry, and these engines are the actual vehicle that will carry the Artemis 1 mission on an unmanned trip around the moon. Again, hopefully later this year or early next year. They had tried to do a hot fire test back in January, but it was mostly successful. But an auto abort was triggered at about 1 minute into the test, and so they figured out what the issue was, and so this past week they were able to conduct a successful full duration hot fire test. Let's check that out real quick.
FRS, red line back this. H-boys on.
Go for engine start.
H-boys are on, and engine starts has been okay. Engine starting up now.
And all personnel, we've got engine start, and we're into the plus count. All personnel, please continue to monitor your systems, and grass is in control.
So the hot fire test was conducted at the B1 B2 test stand at the Stennis Space Center in Mississippi. This test stand was built in the 1960s for the Saturn V. It was also used in the development of the space shuttle and also the Delta IV booster, the common booster core for ULA. Yeah, so this monster of a test stand is now what they're using to test the SLS rockets. Now, this test fire was the culmination of many months of what they called their green run tests, of basically checking out the systems of the core stage prior to their use in Artemis 1 later this year. So, okay, right here. So you see this engine wiggling. I thought this looked so cool. But this is a gimbal test of the engines. They're not vibrating because of they can't handle the thrust. These are flight-proven engines. These are RS-25 engines that actually flew on previous space shuttle missions, and they're being reused now for Artemis. Unfortunately, the SLS is not designed as a reusable system, so once these engines and this rocket flies, they will be discarded. So they'll exist in our memories and in the history books. But yeah, so this rocket uses hydrogen and oxygen, just like these engines burn hydrogen and oxygen. The solid rocket boosters are, of course, a solid polymer. But Saturn V, which also used this same test stand, burned kerosene and oxygen, similar to Falcon 9. But in any case, the billowing... So first of all, the hydrogen and oxygen combustion, the product of that, is pure water vapor. So there were some people in the chat during this live stream talking about, pollution from the rocket or whatever. First of all, the billowing clouds you're seeing is pure steam. It is steam both from the combustion of the hydrogen and oxygen, but also steam from the vaporization of the sound suppression water system, the water deluge system, that pumps like 100,000 gallons of water a minute or something. Sprays it into the flame trench or whatever, the exhaust area, to dampen the acoustic vibrations, to protect the rocket and the test stand from the vibrations from the sound of this rocket firing, which is one of the loudest sounds produced by man, and pointed out by Bear Hug in a Discord thread. Basically, the Saturn V was the loudest sound ever created by man that was not atomic in nature. So, yeah. So congratulations to NASA and all involved. That was exciting to see. It was a great test. You may have criticisms of the SLS contract or development process, but in the end, I mean, we should all be hoping for success in this mission. And so this was a big step toward that eventuality. Now, on Friday, up in Earth orbit, astronauts Kate Rubins and cosmonauts Sergei Ryzhikov and Sergei Kudzverchkov got in the Soyuz MS-17 spacecraft and relocated it from the Rassvet module to the Poisk module on the Russian side of the space station. Now, I am not actually sure why they did this. I know there is a Russian module, the Pirs module, which is scheduled to be deorbited later this year. Both Poisk and Pirs have been attached to the space stations for about 20 years now. They were both they're both about 20 years old, and I know that Pirs is scheduled for decommissioning and deorbit later this year. But so I'm not sure why they moved this to Poisk, but they did it successfully, and the reason why they needed the to actually get in, because Soyuz is capable of autonomous docking and undocking using the Kurs, the Russian Kurs system of, you know, radar communications or whatever. However, they did this manually, maybe for practice. I'm not sure, but the reason why the crew needed to be on board is because the Soyuz is their ride back down to the Earth. So for those three crew, if something happened during this relocation and the Soyuz was for some reason unable to redock with the space station, the crew has to be on board in case they need to make an emergency landing, or so that they can, so that they can hang out around the vicinity of the ISS at a safe distance until they're able to fix whatever needs to be fixed so that they can redock. But the point is, this is their lifeboat, and they have to be on the lifeboat when it redocks, even if they don't plan on leaving the station. Then, let's see. Yes, in the wee hours of Saturday, so 2 nights ago, a Russian Soyuz 2.1A was supposed to launch a rideshare mission with the CAS 501 satellite and others, but they had to scrub due to an issue with the ground support equipment for the Fugate upper stage. Now, scrubs for Soyuz rockets are pretty uncommon, but they found the issue, whatever it was. They didn't specify what the issue was, but they found the issue, fixed it, and they are ready to launch again tonight. Now, this launch was managed by, or this launch attempt is managed by GK Launch Services, which is an official operator of commercial launches from Russian spaceports, as opposed to Roscosmos, who does the Russian government launches and the Soyuz launches to the ISS. GK Launch Services was created by Glavkosmos, a subsidiary of Roscosmos, and the international space company Kosmotras, which is a joint project between Russia, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan. Also last week, and this is pretty cool, Elon Musk tweeted a photo of the first the first Super Heavy booster. It's been stacked in the high bay at SpaceX's facility in Boca Chica, Texas, not far from the Starship launch pad. Now, Booster 1, as they call it, will not fly, but they'll use it as a pathfinder to figure out how to build and transport the 70-meter or 229-foot rocket stage. Now, Falcon, or I keep saying Falcon, Super Heavy is about the same height as a fully stacked Falcon 9. But remember, though, it's just the first stage of the overall Starship vehicle. The final vehicle will have a 50-meter or 160-foot Starship upper stage riding on top for an overall height of 120 meters or 393 feet. That's 30 feet taller than the Saturn V, including its launch escape tower. So, quite a monster indeed. Now, that's it for last week. Getting to this week, today, in fact, later today, asteroid 2001 FO32 will whiz past the Earth at 77,000 miles per hour, or 124,000 kilometers per hour, at a comfortably safe distance of 1.25 million miles, or about 2 million kilometers. It poses no threat to the Earth, but this will be 2021's largest asteroid encounter by the Earth. And so there it is, a little dot. getting to the launch schedule tomorrow, Monday, March 22nd, at 2:07 a.m. Eastern, 6:07 GMT. GK Launch Services will again attempt to launch a Soyuz 2.1A rideshare mission with the CAS 501 Earth observation satellite for Korea, the ELSA-D active debris removal system for Japan-based Astroscale, and 4 Earth imaging microsats by Axel Space of Japan. Again, this is the mission that scrubbed a couple nights ago. Also on Monday, at either 6 or 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 10 or 10:30 p.m. GMT, an Electron rocket might be launching a mission called They Go Up So Fast. The date and time haven't been officially announced by Rocket Lab, and 2 different launch schedule websites list the launch time 30 minutes apart. So, again, until there's an official announcement, launch times are sort of estimates. So keep an eye on the raw space calendar, which I'll link in the chat. As well as activate the bell for this channel to get live stream notifications. And subscribe, of course. Then on Tuesday, March 23rd at 9 a.m. Eastern, 1300 GMT, ULA will hold a ribbon-cutting ceremony for their new Delta II rocket exhibit at Kennedy Space Center's Rocket Garden, which I've been to a few times. The Delta II is a venerable rocket, having launched many very important missions, such as the Mars exploration rovers and many others. I should have a live stream of that ribbon cutting for you here on Raw Space if you're interested in seeing it. Then sometime on Tuesday or Wednesday, March 23rd or 24th, SpaceX might be launching Starship SN11 on another high-altitude test flight. You remember SN9 blew up on landing, and then SN10 landed successfully, but then blew up a couple of minutes after. Hopefully SN11 will will not involve a RUD. I think we're still waiting for the static fire on SN11 though, so until that static fire happens, they're not going to launch. So stay tuned. Again, keep an eye on the calendar and be prepared for schedule adjustments, because they are frequent and to be expected with Starship tests. Now, you can watch Starship events unfold live on Lab Padre's channel, which I will also link in the chat if Nightbot ever catches up, where they have 24/7 live streams of Launchpad and assembly buildings. I'll also have a live stream of the launch itself here on Raw Space whenever it happens. Usually the way these go is it's preceded by a restreaming of Lab Padre's live views, and then for the launch itself, I will provide the views from the feed from SpaceX. So then later on Wednesday at 10:47 p.m. Eastern, 2:47 a.m. GMT on Thursday, a Russian Soyuz will launch the 5th batch of OneWeb internet satellites from Far Eastern Vostochny Cosmodrome, something like 5 time zones to the east of Moscow. Russia's a big country. And that's about it for this week. There's nothing happening toward the end of the week that is yet on the schedule. Let me just check real quick. The NASA, okay, Tuesday, Friday, interviews. Okay, yeah, no, nothing on NASA's schedule either. So I would like to take this time to welcome and thank our new member, Rothling Alan McMillan, to the channel. So welcome, Alan. Now, your questions. Welcome to my purple life. By the way, the wall, I didn't mention this last week, but the wall color was here when we moved in, or when, well, we moved in 12 years ago, and I don't care about the color, so I just left it as is. So I have a purple office. lavender, periwinkle, whatever color you want to call this. Okay, so getting back to the questions. Toon Vanderpass question from the beginning of the stream. How do you build landing legs with reusable shock absorbers that work in a vacuum? SpaceX will need those. So there was an issue with the SN10 landing where the landing legs did not appear to be locked in position. And in fact, when the rocket landed, first of all, it landed hard, but also it landed sort of canted a bit to an angle, at an angle. And it's thought that the not only the impact velocity, but also the lack of properly deployed legs resulted in damage to the internals of the rocket, and therefore the subsequent explosion. So reusable shock absorbers. It is common in, I mean, there are a number of landing systems that use crush core, which is a material that's used in the legs of a landing system, whether it's like the lunar landers in the Apollo program or whatever, crush core that actually compress to cushion the landing. But that's not reusable because you have to replace that crush core. Now, the little stubby landing legs that Starship uses are not intended to be the final landing legs. I don't know what SpaceX's final plans are for the landing legs for Starship. Super heavy, they've talked about actually catching it by the grid fins, which is super ambitious, but yeah, I mean, they seem to be able to precisely land their rockets with some regularity, so that may be feasible. But as far as landing legs, I don't know. I'm not a mechanical engineer or a rocket engineer. I couldn't really tell you. But hydraulics work fine in a vacuum so long as you maintain your seals on the systems. I don't know what kind of vaporization or outgassing or whatever you may experience in hydraulic systems that are exposed to a vacuum. But I'm sure SpaceX will figure it out. Again, I'm not an engineer, so I'm a software developer. So I'm not sure how, like, what all the implications of various shock absorption systems in a vacuum are. But I'm sure they'll figure it out. Nathaniel Hosea, what is your twist on the Artemis program's success for the moon landing, and why? My twist on the Artemis, my perspective on the Artemis program's success for the moon landings. So Apollo was, it involved multiple contractors, but it was all, the whole program was managed by, NASA, and was conducted under the umbrella of a single organization. But the Artemis program is different because the launch system is being managed by NASA and is being developed by the usual suspects, Boeing and others, Aerojet Rocketdyne and so on. But the lunar lander is being handled by, or lunar landers are being handled by third-party, like private contractors, such as Blue Origin's Blue Moon Lander, and gosh, I don't even know what else. And the progress of those projects, as well as the progress of the lunar gateway, which will supposedly be the way station between here and the moon, is not as clearly defined or as clearly, like, as publicly announced. So I don't know. I mean, I think that ultimately the program will be successful. I mean, I have to have hope that it will be, but it is very complicated. There's a lot of moving parts, and it is not being managed in a monolithic fashion like the Apollo program was. Um, and, I mean, the systems that NASA is working on, SLS and whatnot, are taking way too long. They're way over budget, which is the norm these days. Yeah, so my twist is I hope for success, but honestly, I have no idea how things are going to play out because there's a lot of pieces that need to be put in place before Artemis can happen. I mean, sure, they can take a test flight around the moon, but to actually land, they need a lander. And in order to stage that lander, the plan is to use a lunar gateway. And I believe that's still on the table. I think they're still planning to use the lunar gateway. But that doesn't exist yet. I think that a component of the lunar gateway might be launched later this year. I thought I read something about that. I don't have any specifics, but I'm very curious as to the status of that project because it kind of seems like vaporware at this point. A lot of talk, but not a lot of hardware in place. So I'm hopeful, but we'll see. Mark Desire, how much closer does this engine test bring humans back to the moon? Well, this hot fire test of the SLS rocket was in fact the final step in their Green Run series of tests before the system will be integrated and then launched on Artemis 1, which I remind you is a unmanned mission that will take the craft around the moon. It won't land. But so it brings us closer in that the engines have proven themselves time and again. The tanks have proven themselves. And, I mean, ultimately, the purpose of a rocket is to provide thrust in a reliable fashion so that you can get off of this rock. And, if the engines are providing that thrust and they are aimed in the right direction, then you're going up. So, we still don't have an upper stage to SLS. We still don't have a completed Orion module. We still don't have other systems, the lander, etc., etc. But there's a lot of steps yet to complete, but this was an important one, and that's good. And this is, in fact, the largest rocket stage in the world. Now, some people mentioned that it was only the largest for a couple of hours until Elon made his tweet about the Super Heavy, but that's not actually a rocket stage. It's actually just a test article that won't even fly, whereas the SLS core stage that was just tested is the actual vehicle that will be launching Artemis 1. So let's see. Robin Bunny Buns. I thought SLS was going to be the most powerful rocket. So SLS is going to be more powerful than the Saturn V. But let me see. Let me bring up real quick. I've just got to search my own channel here. Give me just a moment. All right, popular videos. Delta 4. All right. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to here. No, we're not going to watch this take off. What we are going to do is look at the comparison of rocket's pound force of thrust at liftoff. So Saturn V had 7.891 million pound force of thrust, and that's the unit of thrust that's how it's pronounced, pound force, not pounds force or pound forces. And it's abbreviated LBF. But anyway, Saturn V had 7.891 million. The space shuttle, with the 3 RS-25 engines and the 2 solid rocket boosters, which actually provided most of the thrust, had a total of 7.8 million. So the space shuttle at liftoff was just shy of matching the Saturn V's level of thrust. SLS will have 8.87 million, and that's with the 4 RS-25 engines and 2 solid rocket boosters. So that's about a little more than a million pound force of thrust more than the Saturn V. And then Super Heavy, which is the Starship first stage that they just stacked in the high bay in Boca Chica, will have 16 million pound force of thrust. Now, the only other actual rocket that has ever had more thrust than the Saturn V is the Energia rocket, which only reached orbit. Was the Soviet N-1 moon rocket, which had 10.2 million pound force of thrust, but it blew up and it never actually reached orbit. So now Energia was close, had 7.8 million, about equivalent to the space shuttle. And Energia is what was going to launch the Russian space shuttle, the Buran space shuttle. But yeah, so there you have the numbers. So Super Heavy, 16 million. And this SLS core stage test was much less than that, because the solid rocket boosters, the solid propellant, has a huge amount of specific impulse. It's a very the solid rocket boosters provide the majority of the thrust, and then the hydrogen and oxygen provide up to 1.6 million pound force, something like that, for the 4 RS-25 engines, I think. But anywho, moving on. Michel van der Speck, can the asteroid be seen from some point on Earth flashing by? You can visit a website like heavensabove.com. I'll put it in the chat. Oh, hello. If I could type. Heavens-above.com, and you should be able to get the, put in your location is not terribly relevant because it's not a orbiting satellite, but you should be able to get at least a, like a magnitude number of how bright that asteroid will be, and chances are you won't be able to see it with the naked eye. I mean, this is a first of all, it's 2 million kilometers away, which is quite a ways, and it's also not that big. So you would need, a telescope to see the thing. Chris V, can I comment on Rockin' Robin's 13's opinion of SLS up chat? Okay, so yes, I read what is on the teleprompter verbatim. Transcode, hey Raw Space, how are you, bro? I'm surviving. Yeah, things are crazy right now. I'm a week and a half from closing on a new house, and I've got to get this house packed up and ready to go. But I'm surviving. Thank you for asking. So Rockin' Robbins' question up chat. Let's see. Rockin' Robin's Artemis 1 will be a loop around the moon a la Apollo 8. There will be plenty of celebrating. You're such a curmudgeon, man. Alright. Okay, so it won't be equivalent to Apollo 8, which entered a circular orbit close to the moon. So, yes, it will be looping around the moon. It will not be orbiting the moon. So that's an important distinction. Yeah, I mean, SLS will do what it does. I mean, you know, I don't like to thumb my nose at launch systems because they're not as capable as others or whatever. But you know, if they finish their mission and they get us where they're supposed to get us, then that's good enough for me. Now, I would like to mention that the RS-25 engines on the SLS rocket that was or the SLS core stage that was just tested are RS-25D engines that rode on the space shuttles. Literally, these are flight-proven engines. Now, there are only 16 RS-25Ds left. And these are veteran engines of the space shuttle program. Once those 16 are expended during the Artemis program, then they will move on to the cheaper and non-reusable, because the RS-25Ds were designed to be reusable on the space shuttles. The RS-25E is a cheaper engine that is not designed to be reusable, and those are what will take over once the 16 RS-25Ds have been expended. And again, each Artemis launch will use up 4 of the RS-25s. So, so I guess the idea is, you know, that SLS will not exactly take us to the moon. SLS will take us to the gateway, and then the lander will take us from the gateway to the moon. But so I need to research that gateway, because at least my current understanding of the plan for Artemis is that they will be using the lunar gateway, and being such an absolutely critical component, we hear so little about it. So I need to do some research. Mark Desire, the more I read about Artemis, SLS, etc., the less I understand it. That pretty much describes my experience with most things. The more I read, the more confused I get. But I'll try to bring you the info. All right, so I think that's going to wrap it up for this week. Next week will be the last Space Week prior to my move. So in 2 weeks I'll be in the new house, hopefully, and I'll probably still have boxes behind me. We'll see, but I really want to set up the new office and studio so that I can arrange my space paraphernalia behind me instead of having a green screen. I don't like the green screen. It comes in handy when I want to project myself over the the spaceship cockpit or whatever, but that's not, I would rather not use the green screen, because it looks cleaner and more professional to actually have stuff, physical items sitting behind me than try to approximate a Hollywood effect with my meager consumer hardware. So thank you all for coming, and I hope to see you again in the next stream. Until then, keep it raw. And I'm sorry no Bennu today. He's hiding behind something. But At least you have an image of him off to the side. All right, so bye for now.